Welcome back to the Dropout Drop-In, you
Ew.
righteous watchers.
That's
Like that one?
It's so good.
So whether you're watching as a longtime Dimension 20 Dropout viewer or your first time calling in, this episode is for all of y'all. Let's get into what we know about this season, starting with, we're going back to ancient Greece. We're going into mythology, very much the familiar territory of Brennan Lee Mulligan.
Big Z. We're getting some Big Z.
Big Z from Big B. Hey, what do we think about that? Jordan, do you think this is like the most Brennan's ever Brennan?
I mean, I don't know. I have no idea. Look, there are so many people who I know their explicit opinions on wrestling that are connected to Dimension 20 in some way. Jess Ross, Danielle Radford, Brian Murphy. I know how they feel about wrestling. I have no idea how Brennan feels about wrestling, if this was like a dream come true for him or not. I can tell you it's a dream come true for Carlos Luna. Apparently he has been the big one pushing for like this to exist in the world. So I'm excited for him.
I didn't know that Carlos was the connection there, so that's very exciting. Nothing better than when your production team is as excited as the people in front of the camera. And this cast looks the most excited perhaps a cast has ever looked to play in the Dome. Like, this is for people who are stacked athletes. We have a seasoned D&D player at the table as well. I think this is going to be like a test of Brennan's wits, the same way that Dungeons and Drag Queens was a test of Brennan's wits.
Yeah, I'm super curious. Obviously, like Xavier Woods, aka Austin Creed, super big nerd, very much in the Dungeons and Dragons space. There you can see him play Dungeons and Dragons elsewhere. I'm curious if the other three have any experience with it or not, or if this is going to be like full like drag queens discovering the magic of playing D&D, sitting at a table with, I mean, one of the greatest DMs to ever do it.
Right.
Not a bad way to start.
Not a bad way to start your D&D career. I really want to know what, if any, group chat existed pre-filming, with this Xavier being like, and here's what you guys need to know, and this is what we're going to do, and like any of that like under the table talk to set everyone up for success. I feel like there must have been some input there.
For sure. Yeah. You gotta.
You gotta, especially when you're going up against Brennan and you're going into the Dome for absolute madness. And this season looks like madness to me for one reason specifically, which is it's rare in the world of Dimension 20 where it seems like we're staying within one place. But the whole concept that we saw in the trailer was very much, we are in the ring. We are at a very specific place at a very specific time doing a very specific thing. And that thing is battle set, and it is fighting, and there's obviously going to be plot and lore and different things happening, but very, very different from exploring the world of Kelvorda and going into different lands and going on that like classic Dungeons and Dragons literal journey into physical space.
Yeah. I'm really curious how much of it is going to be like this, what appears to be like a tournament of champions style wrestling, whatever, and how much there will be runway to that, and how much time will be spent there. Because I mean, obviously there are systems out there that are dedicated to wrestling. Like there are wrestling role playing games that obviously they could have chosen. I think for Dimension 20, it makes sense to be like, it's wrestlers in D&D, and like that's how you want to market it, and it's wrestlers and a TTRPG system. Okay, let me explain what TTRPGs are. Like, I get why you choose to just like play 5e when it's a system, or when it's a big thing like this. The same with the drag queens, right? It was drag queens and D&D. Like we can market this, two things that you, even if you don't understand D&D, you've heard of it, you have like a vague idea that like it's a game people play. But yeah, I'm really curious how much outside of the ring we will see, since look, Dungeons and Dragons is not built to wrestle. Like there are not mechanics that are built that way. Like grappling in D&D is not something that would work the same way in grappling and wrestling. Like it's very different, and I'm really curious, especially with them playing. You know, like is it a rogue? Yep. Do we have a fight?
Barbarian.
Yes.
Tabaxi rogue. A the king, that's what I have written down
Yep.
for Kofi, and a monk.
Yes. Yeah. So very like martial heavy classes, which I think makes sense. But yeah, I'm really curious. Like, like what does a rogue's sneak attack look like if you're incorporating it into wrestling? Like how does all of this work?
Totally.
Is the barbarian rage when like you would like Hulk Hogan would like get charged up and you couldn't hurt him? Like, is that what this is? Like, what? How does this become wrestling? Anyway, that's it. That's the whole thought.
There has to be some homebrew elements to this.
Yeah.
I would like there has to be. But when we had the intro and the FAQ and everything going into Never Stop Blowing Up, which for those of you that might be new to Dimension 20 was last year's kind of brand new enterprise IP that they did over the summer. We had a lot of lead going into that season about this is an evolved system and there are new mechanics, and they actually ended up releasing for free the not the character sheets, but like the system for you to use to play at home. And for this, all we know is that it is in 5e. We've had no indication that this is like a monster mash of different Brennanisms that are coming together to make the most of it. So I'm really intrigued to see how much they stay or stray from that, if there's surprises coming our way, if there are other elements that are going to come into play from like the NPCs. Like we don't just have the 4 players at the table, we have all these gods that have to operate within that system as well. Big Z.
Big Z. Just gonna keep doing it forever.
Please do. Please. We need a Big Z emoji designation for this show, I think. Maybe like, I know there's a sleeping emoji with a bunch of Z's. Maybe
We just need someone to make a hands making a Z emoji for us.
If someone makes that, I'll
Do
figure
it.
out on YouTube how to, you can add like custom emojis to use in the comments and in the chat. I'll figure out how to do
don't.
that if someone makes it and sends it to us.
I believe you that it can be done. I have had to do it in several places. Didn't know you could do it on YouTube. So
Yeah, you can. Okay, so if someone makes it and sends it to us, we will add it in the places where it's possible to do it. So fun. Looking at this combo, like we said, Minotaur Barbarian, the King, Tabaxi Rogue, Monk. This is such a classic starting D&D lineup, to me, at least. In a lot of the games that I've played, I feel like this has been a combo we've had at the table. But do you have any specific expectations for like why these are the characters we're going to be seeing, or how this connects to wrestling?
No. Yeah, I mean, I'm super curious. Like I said, I'm curious, like, how much of this is outside of the ring. I have to imagine, we've said, you said, I think, that it's 4 episodes, or you didn't, and I'm saying it for the first time. Who knows? My memory doesn't exist. But, like, yeah, obviously it's not going to be a Royal Rumble for 4 full episodes. Like, that would be bad television.
It'd be a hard watch.
Yes. So I'm curious how much like we're seeing outside of the ring before they step into it. If there is a, like Kraken style final battle of like, oh, there's actually a giant monster that, because it's ancient Greece, there has to be a giant monster at some point that, like steps out and you have to fight that, and it becomes much more like less wrestling, more 5e. But yeah, I think my guess is that probably under Xavier's like guidelines, they were like, it's like, make your classic martial classes. We're going in as fighters, which makes me assume that the King is a fighter. That's the only thing I can think of. That's I don't, or it's just it's got to be, right. Like there is no fighter in the group. The King must be a fighter.
I completely agree with you. That has to be what's happening there. I know that in the trailer there was we got some dialogue like out of context, right? And one of the jokes that was made was Chelsea Green saying this, I'm actually singing buttons as I go, as she was like creeping. So I definitely, for sure, there's going to be some like mystery creeping around, hijinks happening. I think when you have a theme, for lack of a better word, like this, that is so familiar to the majority of people watching, unlike other seasons, it's like we are totally going into a world straight from Dimension 20 that no one has ever seen or played in before, so you have to take the lore at face value from Brennan. I'm really interested to see how this world, which people are coming in with their own context to, is able to play with common common knowledge, pop culture knowledge, the, you know, pop culture idioms that come with ancient Greece. And I mean, what a time for mythology and media. You have the Odyssey in production. You have musicals on TikTok that are being made out of like ancient mythology stories. This is kind of adding into that moment of it's top of mind for a lot of people. And I think it's going to be like an interesting dance for D20 to jump into.
It is very cool that Christopher Nolan discovered the little-known book, The Odyssey.
Can you believe it? The
just
first man to ever.
Anyway, hey, is Chelsea Green Canadian?
I'm going to add a whole animation here. Watch, it's going to happen right now. Chelsea Green, Canadian from Victoria, BC, the reigning and inaugural WWE
British
Women's
Columbia.
United States champion. British Columbia, 10 points to Jordan for the Canadian knowledge. You're getting there. If Jordan makes it to 100 by the end of the season, I'll send him a Canadian flag in the mail. Chelsea Green's also the former one-time WWE Women's Tag Team Champion. She's an icon in Canadian wrestling. She's an icon in wrestling. It also means that this season of Dimension 20 is, say it with me, Jordan, CanCon. Yes, 2 points to Jordan for that one as well.
Definitely a thing I understand.
We're all going to get there. It is very exciting to see another Canadian jump into Dimension 20. We've had like Alex Songja, Never Stop Blowing Up, and oh my God, my favorite, Season Mentopoulos, that I almost forgot the name of. We've had lots of different people jump in over the years, so it's very, very exciting to see another one. But I'm also excited for, you have Bailey, you have Kofi, you have Xavier. It's like this combo of folks who are so at the top of their league, top of their game, who have so much chemistry across each other. I think it's the perfect combo, same as the drag queens. They cast the perfect 4 drag queens that had their own chemistry, backstories, and lore into this world. I think they absolutely nailed it again. And I think we're going to see a lot of lines between Dungeon and Drag Queen season 1 and what we're going to see out of this season, in the sense of like, how do you welcome in a culture that is so specific and unique and known into the world of actual play, where there's so much room to play and honor that. And we talked about that in last week's episode, where we talked about drag culture coming into the world of Dimension 20 and how cool it was to see that evolve over season 2 of Dungeons and Drag Queens.
Yeah. I don't know anything about any of the wrestlers. I haven't watched wrestling in at least 25 years. So, like, I know very little. I shouldn't say very little. I know absolutely nothing about any of them. From what I have heard from creeping in people's comment sections, these 4 wrestlers, very good people and like very good entertainers. They're everyone's big fans of the 4 that they chose, which is very exciting. I also say, like, it's great for wrestlers. Like, they understand, you know, the theatrics of it all. They are performers, but they also they understand a good heel turn. They understand like what makes a good hero, what makes a good, what they would call babyface or heel, like the heroes and villains of it all. And so I'm really excited to see them like really lean into those aspects. Oh man, wouldn't it be great if one of them did a heel turn like in the finale, and like switch sides and like joined Big Z? I assume Zeus is the villain. Zeus is always the villain, and especially for Brennan Lee Mulligan, there's no way Zeus is not a bad guy. Like, Jordan,
you're spot on with all of that. I agree with you completely. However, the very last thing you said, I did not hear, because as soon as you started speculating about what they could do, I had a vision in my head of the table finally getting a hole in the middle of it because someone just elbow smacks down on top of it, and that's how we finally see the table upgrade happen. Yeah. Now that's what I want out of this season.
That makes sense. I was just saying Zeus was a villain because Zeus has to be a villain because it's Brennan Mulligan. I mean, Zeus is a villain, and also it's Brennan, so Zeus will be a villain.
Has to be. Yeah. Has to be. I'm really excited to see that, like, the characterization of these famous mythology figures in the context of, you don't get a season of Dimension 20 without Brennan connecting things to politics, capitalism, systems that are not just, and in power balances that are very, very imbalanced. And all of that is so one-to-one connected to mythology and like the most powerful gods in the world. So it'll be very fun to see Brennan's spin on that specifically. I also think it's so interesting thinking about the place that Dimension 20 has in television, and the way that Dungeons and Drag Queens kind of opened that door for first-time viewers to come in because they knew the cast and they wanted to see the cast perform. You're having that happen again to the world of wrestling, inviting wrestling fans in, especially those that watch wrestling or enjoy wrestling for the point of performance and character and that side of it, they're going to eat up this season. If that's you watching and this is your first time coming into the world, you're going to love those same things in this context. It's like a perfect growth point for the show. And it has me now thinking, like, what are the other entertainment avenues that Dimension 20 can, like, peek into and grab some superstars from and put them in a new context?
Yeah, I mean, I know, like, wrestlers are obviously professional athletes, but I'm thinking, like, like we've seen in Nobody Asked, the, like, comedians versus professional athletes. I mean, we know Johnny Stanton would be in the Dome in a heartbeat. Like, is that going to be our next, like, season of, like, we've got an NFL player, a WNBA player, like, we've got, like, the major sports are sitting down at the table. I think that would be very fun and seems very plausible.
There's something deeply, deeply healing about the idea of, like, in classic pop culture and in history, it's like the people who play D&D versus the jocks. Like, there's always that, like, contrast, and this show is kind of being like, no, we are all the same style of human. Like, let's all come together. I think there's, like, some inner child healing that Brennan is facilitating through all of this.
Very much agree. I also say, like, you mentioned wrestling fans. Huge shout out. Danielle Radford is the consultant for the season. She got to be on set for all of the shooting. Like if you are worried is not the right word, but, like, if you're thinking, like, oh, I hope someone on set knows their wrestling stuff, you're good. Danielle knows her wrestling stuff. She is good to go. I saw a few people in the comments who were like, what about Murph? Why wasn't Murph there? And Murph is so tired. You can't expect him to show up for another season. I'm sure we're filming Intrepid Heroes somewhere around this time. And also, like, at that point, NADPOD was fully in the finale era. They were close if they weren't there right then. Like, Murph was very busy. Murph is always very busy. So
I have to believe, Jordan, that if you're a professional actual play creator, performer, DM, all of the words you can use to describe the roles that Murph has, there has to be a cap on how much you can do without burning yourself out completely, on top of whatever home games you're doing to try and keep your own creativity and love for the art going. So, as a fan of, like, WWE, of wrestling, of these people, I'm so excited for Murph to either have the screeners already and be thoroughly enjoying them in the group chat with the rest of the Dropout folks that are watching, or to experience it as a fan. That's also kind of cool.
Yeah, for sure Murph knew it was coming. Like, but yeah, I'm excited Danielle got to be there, and I think we are in very safe, capable hands with a wrestling aficionado as skilled as Danielle.
And if you want to know more about, like, Danielle's brilliance in this world, Jordan and I did a whole season about Misfits and Magic, which is a season that recently aired that Danielle was instrumental in, and almost every episode is just me and Jordan going on about how phenomenal Danielle is as a player and as a performer.
Truly.
So,
yes.
And you have an interview with Danielle on your Patreon.
I sure do, and I think we talk about wrestling at some point.
There you go.
Can't be 100%, but probably. No, definitely, because her Thousand Airs, where she was a wrestler, had aired at that point. So, yes, we definitely talk about wrestling.
There you go. Perfect. So, lots for people to catch up on and watch. I'll link all of that below. Jordan, one of the things we saw in our first watch, which I'll also link to that if you want to see our initial reaction to the season, we did it all on Twitch. The sets and the art and the minis, which are... It's going to be hard to use the word minis to describe some of what this season has in store for us.
I think I have the exclusive that the minis are actually not mini. They're like 2 times the size of a normal mini because they wanted to have basically the original idea I think was literal, like, action figures where they could, like, move their arms and everything, but that is very complicated to make in what sounds like a very short amount of turnaround. So instead, they contracted a designer and were 3D printing all of these, like, double-sized minis so that they were more like the wrestling action figures that you think about, and then utilizing some, like, elementals and giants that the standard minis that are already that big as the crowd for wrestling matches.
That's unreal. Oh my god. So this is not what you just said, but now I want to be able to, like, zoom in on the crowd and see, like, a Kristen Applebee's that was never used. Like, all these characters we love that were just kind of, like, painted over to be, like, general faces in the crowd.
Yeah.
Amazing. We've been back and forth in text talking about some of the things that came out from the trailer, some of the photo dumps that were posted, and this table specifically has us on either side of a question of like, what is going to be our main like tablescape for this season? It looks like there's a chessboard of sorts that's either a map of its own or like that base layer that things get put on top of.
I think the chessboard is the neutral board. That is we are not in combat. That is the board we are seeing. I know you think it is actually a moving pieces board, which either makes sense, but I feel like, I don't know. Does chess an ancient Greece thing? I don't know where chess came from.
That's a great question.
For sure someone is mad at me right now for being so wildly wrong about where chess came from.
Leave it in the comments. Let's hear all that rage. No, I will stick to the side of it is a board or it's something that's going to become like an active part of the story for the sake of us having conflict and a fun point to come back to throughout the season. The character art as well for the season and like the way that the dome is animated.
Yeah.
Oh man, we're in for it.
Really, really good. They just keep stepping up their game. It gets better and better every season.
It gets better and better every season, and it's a shock to the system when they're able to level up in such a short amount of time. And this is something that I know you and I have talked about a lot. Like, there's a difference between doing a season that's 10 to 20 episodes in length or somewhere in that ground, and then the 4-episode sprint where you have to jam pack a lot of story in a short amount of time, and most likely you're filming it over the course of 2 days, 3 if you're lucky.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I will say, I don't know if we've mentioned, like, I'm really excited it's a 4-episode season. We had speculated that we weren't going to see those anymore because we thought they would want everything to possibly be Emmy contenders. And I'm excited we've got a short season because, one, I really enjoy them, and two, it means we get Intrepid Heroes even sooner than I expected.
So let's talk about that side of the equation, because this is one of the most exciting parts about having this piece of the puzzle locked in. We knew behind the scenes that this season was happening. We did not know when it was dropping. So having the when landed, and that's a little bit like asterisks beside it, because in the FAQ, it says we're getting 4 episodes. In the Variety article that dropped that had a little bit more information, it said it was a 5-part series. So either Variety misprinted or there's some kind of like split coming. Do you have a prediction?
I mean, in the same way that Variety called him Coldwell Turner, I think it is a misprint in Variety that's gonna be the end. I can't imagine that the FAQ was wrong. I've never seen it be wrong. Question mark?
No, and that comes straight from Dropout. If you're not aware, it's linked in the description of the trailer drop. It comes straight from Dropout's press team and the team that makes Dimension 20. So if we're gonna take that at face value, and it is a 4-episode season, 1 episode per week in back-to-back weeks, so not skipping like other Dropout shows, that takes us to May. And if we have the same gap in time as other Dimension 20 seasons, that means that mid-May we're entering the world of Intrepid Heroes once again, which will run all summer long. Aren't we in for it this year?
Yeah, I can't wait for Starstruck 2 to the finale the week before Viva Las Vegas.
And we should say, that's not confirmed, but Jordan and I are absolutely putting all of our eggs in that basket. So when you hear us say that, it's because we are riding that train saying that is exactly what is in store.
Yeah, absolutely. Long hair Murph would never grow his hair out just for fun. It's to play Big Barry 6. That's the only possible explanation.
Me and my Barry shirt absolutely agree with that assessment.
Yeah.
That is the only path forward. It's going to be Big Murph Summer.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I can say. We had Brat Summer last year. We have Murph Summer this year, and you heard me declare that here first. Anything else we want to speculate or share about this season?
I just want to give a special shout out to Jenny Newman, costume designer, for getting Brennan in some new, different clothes, looking sharp. Because, like, it feels, obviously, the drag seasons, it makes sense that Brennan, like, goes to the 9s and, like, really, like, does the look. By the way, I talked to Denise Valentine, the makeup artist at Dimension 20 this week, and she described their goal for the drag queen seasons, Brennan's looks, is to, and I believe I'm quoting directly here, make the audience wet. So have that to look forward to. Anyway, you expect it in drag queens, but Jenny Newman, shout out for getting Brennan into some fancy duds for wrestling as well. It felt important. Yeah.
That's the wildest shit you've ever said on this podcast, and we've said a lot of shit over the past year.
I know. And that's just the tip of the iceberg of that interview.
Oh, I cannot wait for that to drop. I subscribe to Jordan on Patreon, and you can like and subscribe here on YouTube for the Dropout Drop-In. Hey, that helps us too. Wow, that's exciting. I'm thrilled to see Brennan kind of lean into the aesthetics of the show. I think especially the role he has in the show, both behind the scenes, executive producer, in front of the screen, or I guess behind the screen, the DM screen in front of the screen as a television. That's some confusing language to navigate, but you know what I mean. Like, it makes more sense for him to be the most immersed person of anyone at the table at all times. I think it kind of helps the feeling of we're all in this world and you are entering a place as much as the people at the players are. People at the table, the players.
Yeah, I mean, thinking of that, like the other moment from the trailer, the microphone coming down, like the ring mic that Brennan like announces, that's Rick Perry just literally lowering a microphone into Brennan behind the dome. Like, yeah, it's that all of that is so great. Love it.
I really hope we get a little bit behind the scenes from this season, whether it's like we've had the production team do like the after adventuring party together, or if it's like a separate piece that we get. I just think there's so much fun clearly happening bringing this specifically to life. It'd be very cool to see how they did it.
Yeah.
And if we don't, we have your interviews to lean on.
That's right. Got a Rick Perry one already in the bag. Got a Michael Schaubuck one coming later today, but who knows when it's released. Anyway, we'll have seen 0 episodes before I talk to them, but I'll talk to the people responsible for things at some point as well. You know that's how I do things.
It'll be a fun one. We'll be covering all of it. So if you have friends that are watching, if you know people that are new to Dimension 20 and they want more context to appreciate the show more, invite them to the Dropout Drop-In every week. We'll be covering it. And in the meantime...
I said that's us.
That's us. That's us. That's what we do here. In the meantime, and I know we've been plugging this every week, but Jordan, we do have a full month until then, and we have lots of other Dropout series that we're going to be jumping into very soon.
Yeah, I mean, look, were we 3 weeks or 2 weeks into actually season 10, and 3 or 2, I genuinely can't remember, of my favorite episodes I've ever seen. Like the opener with Brennan was amazing. If there was a second episode, and the girly nerd of it all, just absolute. They're cooking with gas over there. VIP. Have you watched last night's yet?
There was a great tweet, and I'm not going to remember the name of the person, but I'll put a screenshot of it. And it was like, this is supposed to be a comedy show. And then, like, the screenshot.
I talked to Tamara Levine, the director of VIP, and she said, like, this episode and the one coming after it are, like, heavy effects episodes. And obviously we saw that last night with various, like, smoke effects and things that clearly were not happening in studio but had to be added in post. And, like, just shout out to the VIP folks. They're crushing it this season.
Emmy for VIP.
Yeah.
Emmy for VIP. That is what we firmly stand on at the Drop-In. They're putting the work in, though.
Yes, really. Oh boy, what a season.
We'll have lots of other exciting stories that we're covering outside of Dimension 20, outside of these shows. You've always got interviews coming on your Patreon. We've got awards season happening over here, so all your pop culture happening between Jordon Brown, producer Liz, but Dimension 20 in April. You can find us here every week, and until then, we'll see you next week on the pod.
Bye.
Bye.